in any kind of way that suggests that they would put unwelcome upward pressure on prices. So I don't really think it is an important part of the inflation discussion right now.
Hashtag film your hospital. A bunch of people around the nation, upon hearing these reports of the hospitals being overflowed, the emergency room being packed, that they need beds outside and tents outside because there's just this massive flow of patients coming in due to the coronavirus outbreak. Well, these people took it upon themselves to get out into their own community, to go film their own hospitals, to see if what these mainstream media reports were reporting about these hospitals that are completely overloaded was true. Now, they hashtagged it Film Your Hospital. You're looking at some of the video on your screen. I do want to start with a gentleman here in Denver, Colorado, Brandon Bowser, who visited a hospital named St. Joseph. Take a listen to what he had to say.
This is St. Joseph's Hospital. Parking lot is empty. I went inside of St. Joseph's and I went in several different waiting rooms, and there was no more than one person in each waiting room that I went into. The emergency over there is slow as can be, and every nurse I've talked to has told me that they're extremely slow and that there's not much going on.
Okay, so on all of these videos that I came across, I'm just showing you a handful of them. There are many, many, many of them on social media. I'm hearing the same story over and over again. This next video, if we could bring it up, this is Marlo. Marlo said that he recorded this video around midday on Saturday at a hospital near Seattle, Washington. Same story, empty tents, empty beds, nobody in the emergency room, nobody in the hospital beds. He said that everywhere he looked, it was just empty, so no mad rush. Another video coming in from Florida, Lord Tito said he visited 2 hospitals in the Tampa Bay area. Same thing, completely empty. This next video, we can bring it up on the screen for you. This is from Southern California, Marina Del Patriot. She said that she visited 7 different hospitals in the Southern California area, and in each one of the hospitals, there was nobody there. The parking lots were empty. There was no overflow. There were not any long lines of people waiting to get inside of these hospitals to be treated. She even shows us, there it is, right on your screen. She's taking a recording outside of one of the waiting rooms, and if you could see, there appears to be maybe one person inside of that waiting room. So everybody that I saw using this hashtag was questioning, why are the mainstream media reports of overflowing hospitals not matching what they are seeing with their own eyes and recording for us to see in their own city? So some questions need to be answered here.
No cases? Okay. My government should not control me. I should not be limited by my government to tell me when I can and cannot leave my house. Why are we being censored? Why are videos being taken down? Last time I checked, this wasn't communist China.
The pandemic leveled the U.S. economy in the second quarter of this year. The worst collapse since the Great Depression. The worst collapse since the Great Depression. The worst collapse since the Great Depression.
We have a much bigger economy now. You know, since my election, we've gone up so much. We have a much bigger economy. We have a much bigger economy. We have a much bigger economy.
Lebanon's economy has been in free fall for the past 10 months. So when the first COVID-19 cases arrived, a strict lockdown only accelerated the economic meltdown. Food prices have skyrocketed, businesses have collapsed, and the national currency has sunk to a new low against the US dollar, making Lebanon the world's 3rd most indebted country. Nationwide protests broke out in mid-June to call out the government's handling of the crisis. Along with almost half of Lebanon, Hajia Basobaid is living below the poverty line. She says her family hasn't received any government aid.
كورونا ما تفزع بس عم يفزع اللي يصير اسا الدولار عم يطلع وينزل والفقير ما في يشتري شيء. وانا كل جمعه بدي ب50,000 دواء. بضل عم استنى بضل 3 ايام بلا دواء 4 ايام تفي بأمن الدوايات. ما في اكل اضيع على الخبز والشاي. بطاطا بصل ما في. كله فاضي. تحت المجلس كمان كله فاضي. إيه الغاز عادي، كل شيء عادي، عادي من البراد ما فيش. نتفة خاص، ملفوفة فوقيها وبس. لحمة فراريس ما في، بندورة ما في. إيه شوية حلو هيك عدينات. هذا الأكل 6-7. هذا الأكل اللي عنا.
Greece, a country on the brink of collapse. Banks shuttered, ATMs running out of cash, and now echoes in our country. Vacationing Greeks left stranded here penniless. ABC's Alex Marquardt reports in from Athens on the eve of one of the biggest showdowns in Greek history.
Tonight, a country deeply divided. All week, the banks closed, life savings locked up inside. Endless lines at ATMs with withdrawals limited to just $67. If you're lucky enough to find one that still has cash.
The country really has to pull itself together somehow.
Heartbreaking scenes, like this retired man collapsing in tears after failing to get his wife's pension. Last night, tens of thousands turning out on both sides of Sunday's historic referendum that may impact not just Greece's future in Europe, but the world economy as well. A simple yes or no vote on a bailout plan. But the implications and the ballot itself could hardly be more complex.
If you read the ballot, nobody can understand it.
Valasia Limniadi and Konstantinos Patronis saved for a year for their dream honeymoon to the U.S., only to have their cards declined in New York City, leaving them without a penny.
Since its independence, the southern African country has seen factional violence, international sanctions, and rampant political instability. But in the mid-2000s, it lost something even more fundamental: its currency. Surviving meant waking up as early as 2 in the morning, trekking to the nearest ATM, and then waiting in line. On a good day, you'd be able to withdraw the equivalent of about $1 or $2 US, the maximum allowed by the government. Or you might find, after losing sleep and waiting for hours, that no more money was left. That's because around 2007, Zimbabwe experienced the second highest inflation in history, after post-war Hungary. It's hard to know exactly how bad it got, as the government stopped reporting numbers after 100,000% inflation, when a loaf of bread cost 30 billion Zimbabwean dollars. Employees stopped going to work when their annual salary wouldn't even pay for their bus ride home. And vending machines were put out of service, unable to hold the billions of coins that a single can of soda would cost. To keep up, the central bank kept printing bigger and bigger banknotes. $1 million, 100 billion, and finally 100 trillion, worth a whole 40 US cents. So how did Zimbabwe get here?
Country's residents are paying the price. Once Latin America's wealthiest country, the conflict has plunged Venezuela into deep economic turmoil. Experts say it is the single largest economic collapse outside of war in at least 45 years. Hyperinflation of their currency is expected to reach 10 million% this year, making money almost worthless. Making money almost worthless. Many are now unable to afford food or medical supplies. New York Times reporter Anatoly Kurmanayev describes what life is like now in Venezuela in his article, Venezuela's Collapse is the Worst Outside of War in Decades, economists say.
The UK has fallen into its largest recession on record because of the coronavirus lockdown, contracting by more than 20% between April and June in the biggest slump of any major global economy. The recession, defined by 6 months in a row of falling output, is the first since the 2008 financial crash. The Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, said the figures confirmed that hard times were here and many more people are expected to lose their jobs.
The greatest economy in the history, not of our country, in the world. We were beating everybody. We were beating China. Remember, if you go back, some of you go back, if you go back 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, everything was... In 2019, China will overtake the United States as the largest economy. And that didn't work out too well for them. That didn't work out. We were just doing leaps and bounds, leaps and bounds, leaps and bounds. doing so great. And then we got hit with the plague, the China plague. And we're not thrilled. It's a disgrace. Nobody should have died. Nobody should have died. We got hit. The whole world got hit. But they stopped it from going into the rest of China. They stopped it from going into China, but they didn't stop it from coming into the U.S. and Europe and 188 countries. And we're developing a vaccine in record time. It will be ready before the end of the year. It will be ready before the end of the year. It will be ready before the end of the year, and maybe much sooner than that. They're very unhappy about that. You know, it's amazing.
We have put together, and you guys did it for our administration, the President Obama's administration before this. We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization, voter fraud organization, voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
From 2012 to 2016, we had about a $120 increase per month in average wages. And then in 2016 to current, that's been cut in half, about $56 a month. And yet, this is in the time of the lowest inflation, as you said, in 50 years, these last 18 months. So what does that mismatch between wage growth and lower unemployment mean to our economy?
Well, so we look at a wide range of wage and compensation measures, and what they tend to show is
the economy is doing very well by every measure. We're having probably the greatest economy that we've had anywhere, anytime in the history of our country. I think it's going to turn out extremely well. We're in a very strong position. We're
looking at over 220 million Americans who just in the last several months died.
We are the piggy bank that everybody likes to take advantage of or take from, and we can't let that happen anymore. America now has the best economy in the history of our country, and we want to keep it that way.